All right, what's up, guys? Ryan Mahoney here with Goosehead Insurance. I'm joined today by Hawkins Cornwell, who's on our franchise sales team. So we started this little series within Flying with the Flock to kind of interview some of the folks at Goosehead and get their story and their experience with the company. So we will have a handful of different folks. I think it's good we operate at a pretty high level just as far as our business model goes and how we transact business. So we hope that these things will bring you a lot of value no matter what you're out there doing. So today we have Morgan Chance on with us. She is part of our franchise sales team and is setting record numbers. So I'll let her introduce herself here in a minute, but basically what that means is she's signing a lot of folks to start their Goosehead career as a franchise agent, whether they're coming from State Farm or Farmers or outside the industry as a whole. So welcome, Morgan. Thank you for joining us. And why don't you give us a little background of how you got started at Goosehead and what's happening now for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into Goosehead almost 4 years ago, right out of college. I went to school at Ole Miss and had a really great friend, yes, hotty toddy, had a great friend who worked at Goosehead here in Dallas, and I was from Texas, so I wanted to get back to the great state of Texas. And I would always see myself growing up in a sales role. And so when this came about, I didn't know anything about insurance really or Goosehead, but I knew I wanted to be in sales and I wanted to be with a company who was growing very quick. I wanted a company that had a ton of upper mobility and was centered around meritocracy, which was perfect because that is everything that Goosehead encompasses. So I got started on our franchise sales team. And I started out as a coordinator. They put me on Michigan and said, call all these people and cold call and call everybody you can in Michigan that has any type of insurance background and sell them a Goosehead franchise.
And we'll come back to this, but I know, like, to give you guys some context about how much Morgan believes in our model, her father is actually going to be a Goosehead agent that she recruited over here, I guess, if you want to say. That's what we'll say, but I think it's awesome. But we'll come back to that, but that's why
I've been selling him on it for the last 4 years.
You're a huge believer in our model. So what are some of the hurdles?
I actually brought in
What's that, Morgan?
Hurdles. Were you saying some of the hurdles I had starting out?
Yeah.
I was learning to speak the insurance language, definitely. But I think a hurdle that I had too was just figuring out the nuances of this industry, because I was a very young professional coming out of school and the insurance industry is extremely antiquated, but Goosehead wasn't. Goosehead's not at all. We're a tech forward company, very fast growing, very young. The average age in our company is like 26. And I was having a hard time relating to the insurance industry because it's very antiquated.
Yes.
So that was a struggle.
How'd you get by it?
I had to do a lot of learning. I picked brains of every single person in the insurance space, State Farm, Allstate, Farmers, to really learn where they were at and figure out their pain points. And Goosehead just happened to solve all of them.
That's right. So here, we all know in sales, it takes a while to get up and running. There's a ramp up period, whether you're on my side selling insurance or building referral partners, or on your guys' side selling franchises and putting people in the pipeline. Like, how long did it take for you before things started to finally roll, where you noticed it was like this domino effect of like, okay, now it's rocking and rolling for me? Like, all that hard work and follow up and prospecting you're able to see it.
It took probably 6 to 8 months for me to really understand and get confident in what I was selling. And once I understood the competitors and really understood Goosehead and how we were making such a difference, it totally snowballed from there, and it hasn't stopped. It just is increasing and increasing and increasing now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did it take like you seeing how it was impacting others throughout inside Goosehead in a way too?
It actually really started with, because, it took a while to learn everything, but I was enjoying just the day-to-day and the culture of Goosehead. So I actually started to bring in friends of mine from college into the company as well to be on our team or be an account executive in the corporate office. So I started bringing on a lot of people just into Goosehead because I loved it so much, the culture. And then when I saw the career opportunities that I was basically bringing friends into in Goosehead, I said, you know what? If I can help open businesses and impact them the way that I was impacting my friends getting jobs at Goosehead, like that's a big deal because we're creating jobs. We're helping people open businesses and changing their lives. And the first time I got an email from an agency owner, it was one of the first ones I ever signed up in New York. When he sent me an email and said, you literally changed my entire family's life. That is when I was like, this is the reason that I do what I do.
Yeah. I say it all the time. It's true for my family too. It's more than just I laugh because there's a lot of people who get very irritated about what you guys do and the follow-up and this and that. And I'm like, and I get it. Everybody's got their own time and it's a timing thing. You got to be open-minded at the right time and things have to line up and all that stuff. But it's very, very true for our family. And it's been a game changer for Blake and I in our lives too. So and we came in 3.5 years ago too. So it's cool. That's what I tell everyone. I'm like, guys, you at least need to hear something out,
Just listen to it.
Yeah. So it's amazing. But Hawkins, what do you got, man? You're selling those too. I mean, she's a wealth of knowledge here for you, man.
Oh yeah. Oh no. Yes. Yeah. Morgan was that's really, they told me Ole Miss was successful here and they pointed to Morgan and Kelsey.
Yeah.
So like, okay, if they can do it, I can try. I can, maybe not as good, but I think really like what was, you kind of mentioned it, but when you started to learn about the industry, what really separated, like, what do you think is the big separation between us and the competition, us and the other, the other opportunities out there?
Yeah, absolutely. Most people would say, or would think carriers, right? Because they would say, if I just had more product, I could sell more insurance. But the reality is carriers are great because yes, you can address more clients, but the big difference between Goosehead and the biggest competitive, really the two biggest competitive advantages we have are our people. We are getting in talent into the insurance industry that they have not seen in 100 years. Our people are sharp. And, a big reason of that is because we're working for a guy who, Mark Jones, who has an extremely robust business career. And he, set out to make Goosehead different, and it definitely is. But I'd say the other biggest thing is our technology and how we're leveraging Goosehead's tech to augment our agents' capabilities, and it's a game changer. Like, you have not seen anything like Goosehead's technology in this space, and I think when we can utilize that smart technology and all the competitive advantages that we have, with our people, I mean, we're unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Martin, we had him on last week. He mentioned that he, obviously 30 years with Allstate.
Yeah.
And just talked about how the technology put him light years ahead and was such a game changer for his agency as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely
Well, I mean, also, I mean, we can, give every agent every single tool they need to be successful. But I think the thing that's really important too is tapping into the agents that, have the grit and have the hustle to want to build a massive insurance agency.
We say it all the time. I think that the amount of carriers doesn't necessarily matter. And I think the brand behind you, it all doesn't not matter, but it's not as big of a deal as you would think to have a brand behind you or 20, 30 different carriers. It still comes down to the hard work and hustle. You got to go out and use it all,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say, what's the difference between the Allstate agent, in one town versus the guy 5 miles down the road? You're not selling different product. It's yourself. So you're really not even using that brand as much as you're using yourself. So why not have access to, more carriers and better technology? But yeah, I mean,
how do you guys use it, Morgan, for on the recruiting side of when you're prospecting like other agents out there?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. Similar to the way that our agents have access to all the like lender and realtor data in the US, we have every single insurance agent for Allstate, State Farm, and Farmers Insurance integrated into our system as well. That's a big recruiting pool for us, of course, but we also have people outside of the industry, and we utilize, technology as well. But we have kind of the same database. It's just our lead sources are existing insurance agents for the most part. Except for the, really great out of industry people that we get as well. But we utilize it very heavily in that way, and follow-ups, of course. I mean, it might be, to your point, not the right timing for an agent now, but we want to be able to get in touch with them again in the future. We want to keep them on our radar and kind of in our pipelines. And so just utilizing the technology to help with, follow-ups and making sure that we're staying in front of these guys because, 3 months ago it might not have been the right time, but it could be now. So.
What's a story or two that you remember of exactly that happening? Like it was like a hard no, and then 6 months or 8 months, and you start to see maybe the walls break down because your follow up. Like, take us through like start to finish. Like it's like, okay, day one it was like, no, go fly a kite, Morgan. I'm not interested. You guys hound me. And then what is it, like a month, 2, 6, 8 months down the road? Like you got to remember at least 1 or 2 stories like that, right?
Oh yeah, tons of them. And there's actually one that I'm working with now that when I opened up Georgia for Goosehead 2 years ago, I wanted this guy. And I was like, you know what? You have an incredible career at State Farm. And if you can do what you did at State Farm at Goosehead, you would be going tenfold. And he told me, absolutely not. He called me, he said gooseneck, and he called me Morgan Chase. And he was like, he's like, quit calling me. I don't want to hear about Goosehead. Like, I'm happy where I'm at. I bleed red. And I was like, okay. He's like, take me off your list. I was like, great. I'll call you in 3 months. So I called him again. And I have been calling this guy probably every other week, literally, or reaching out on LinkedIn for the last almost 2 years now. And he will be signing a contract with Goosehead in the next week. And
awesome.
That is because he said, the tenacity that you had to stay on me, and you really believed what you were selling. And he said it wasn't a doubt in my mind that you didn't believe in what you were selling. He said I just needed to listen. I just needed to take my head out of my butt and say, okay, I'm going to give this girl 10 minutes to tell me why I should even entertain Goosehead. And I did, and he is going to be bleeding green very soon.
That's right.
Well, like, hey man, you wasted 2 years. You could have been 2 years into this thing and 2 years into renewals by now.
That's right. Yep. We've said that to a handful of our friends too. We're like, every month that goes by, you're X amount of premium behind, Yep. I think the other, from just how our model functions, is that it's like I tell everybody, like everyone drives their lane and they drive it fast.
Yeah.
No matter what department you're in, whether it's us on franchise, the agent franchise side, you guys, our service team, like our QC team, like everybody drives the lane and they drive it fast. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and I think that it doesn't matter if you're selling air conditioners or services, whatever it is. But like the ability that you have to follow up with that guy for 2 years and not have any other distractions except for that is, I think, why we win in all areas of our model.
Well, people, something that Mark Jones always said when he was recruiting was, we don't want a jack of all trades, and everybody has something that they're extremely good at. Salespeople are all focused on sales all the time. We're hunters, and service people are farmers and they're nurturers. And I think really leveraging people's strengths is important. And yeah, for us, we are just constantly able to just focus on getting top talent into Goosehead. You guys are focused on building relationships with, referral partners and helping clients. Service is just focused on taking care of our guys and our clients on the back end, and everybody has their strength, and we just all mesh very well together because, where one of us isn't as strong, somebody else is picking up the slack.
Yeah. Yeah. Hawkins, what's a big hurdle that you're running into when you're talking to people, man?
Well, biggest one, we've kind of mentioned it, was the brand. And I think also a big one too, and Morgan, you probably speak on this, is they're saying, why is this 23-year-old calling me to convince me to change my career, because I don't trust him at all. He has no idea.
That's a valid statement too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of those are big. They might not be as familiar with Goosehead, although I feel like if you say the name Goosehead in Texas, where we've been here for 17 years, people are like, okay, we all know Goosehead, or somebody that works at Goosehead. But in states that we're getting, where we're expanding in, they don't know us, but they know very well Progressive and Travelers and Safeco and Nationwide, right? They know the brands that we represent, even if they don't know the name Goosehead. So that's always my rule. And then for the 23-year-old thing, yeah, I was 21 when I started at Goosehead, and I sound like a child. I look like a child, and that was something to have to work through as well. But
yeah,
I think you do that though, Morgan.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did it by just becoming extremely, extremely knowledgeable at what they do. I mean, that goes back to having to learn every aspect of their business. And when I could talk to a State Farm agent and speak their language and know exactly the hurdles and the struggles that they face, they're like, okay, well, she may be young, but she knows everything about my business and every, concern or hole that I have in this, and she's providing a solution with Goosehead. That gains you a lot of respect if you know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And you're professional and your presentation of yourself too.
Yeah. It's no different for us on like like if we're connecting with realtors or lenders or anything, the terms, the process, what's happening. In your world, it's more so like bonus structures, commissions, and how service and sales and hiring and all that stuff is set up. But I mean, the knowledge, I think, Hawkins, that comes along with it, and then leaning on these guys for the experience is probably the best thing.
Whatever, we lean on you, Ryan. I'm like, every agent that I recruit has to talk to Ryan Mahoney. Because your story speaks volumes to these guys.
Yeah.
So.
I think I've told Hawkins before, Morgan, I'm like, you can't screw up your own story. It's like, it's one of those things where I'm very, very cognizant of people's opinions versus their experiences. Yeah. Not that I don't go to people and ask for an opinion on things, but there's definitely, it carries a heck of a lot more weight when you can be like, this is what I did. This is what I've done when I was in that situation, so it's, I just think it's the ups and downs of everything too. But, I think Joe mentioned it when we talked to him, is that, me and Joe are very similar. We weren't bad Allstate/State Farm agents. We did fine. We looked pretty good over there, but we found a model that we were able to excel in Goosehead, and it's just lights out, for us. But that, to your point, like, we've worked our ass off for all that stuff too, so,
Well, I like how John DeVay says it. You know, he's like, Goosehead gives you the keys to a Ferrari. It's just how fast you want to go.
Yep, exactly. I know. He's a good dude. I think it was his birthday yesterday too.
Yeah,
So,
I think it really does. I mean, you know, to Ryan's point, you know, it's the separation of good to great. You know, like you can be good at State Farm, you can be good at Allstate, you can be good at blank company, but at Goosehead, it's about making you great and giving you the tools to take it that next step.
Yeah.
Where you can really excel.
Dude, I'm a big fan of the when I figured out how parallel Goosehead was to my experience at State Farm in Florida and why we crushed it in Florida at the time is we were losing homeowners insurance. We couldn't write anything else, right? So we went to auto down there and just crushed auto. We only focused on auto for like 4.5 years, and we did things that were in just stupid production. And it took me, I don't know if it was 3 months or 4 months, but when I came over to Goosehead, I was like, this is why. Is like, I'm not the type of person that needs to go sell life, sell a vehicle loan, sell mortgages, sell homeowners insurance, sell auto insurance, sell hospital incomes, and then run the team and hire and fire and make sure like I have a system in place for, ironically enough, my system at State Farm was just like Goosehead. It was just 3 of us, not a big company. But like once I'm able to like focus on what I like to do, that's where it just explodes, you know? So it's just finding that right model and right fit for people.
Yeah. And it's not a fit for everybody too. I mean, it takes, you know, a person who is really truly a sales and marketing savvy person to want to even excel in this model. So it's definitely about finding the right fit.
So that's a good point. We don't talk about that a whole lot, right? We've also seen as it started to scale over the last 3 to 4 years that people don't make it.
Yep.
Where do, like, you've probably seen, I know I've seen a handful and the characteristics and traits are pretty similar, but can you talk more to that, Morgan, on your side? Like, what do you guys see when people aren't making it? Like,
yeah. I would say there's 2, in my opinion, there's 2 pretty main things. One is not fully embracing the model and bringing bad habits from previous companies to Goosehead.
Like what?
You can't take for instance, like a State Farm mindset of, I'm going to have a large staff, we're going to churn and burn internet leads, we're going to send mailers, I'm going to get this billboard that's awesome in downtown. You can't take that model into Goosehead where it's 100% focused on lenders and realtors and just building relationships that way. Our model isn't built for churning and burning internet leads. And so it's a different mindset, and you have to come in and 100% just say, show me how to do it. Show me how to build a massive insurance agency the Goosehead way. And then the other, I think, is having a short-term mindset versus a long-term mindset. So insurance is not a get-rich-quick business at all. As much as it would be awesome if it was, it's not. It takes a lot of time. Those renewals it's got to be a couple of years before they're really rocking and rolling. And I think people get in and they say, okay, well, you know, yes, I can profit year 1, but, you know, I want to have my income that I had at my State Farm agency that I've been here for 10 years. I want to have it day 1. Well, that's not the reality of it. You have to have a vision of saying, I'm getting in this for the 5 to 10 year play and tapping it into an income that I cannot do in any other agency model out there, instead of having the short, like 12-month mindset of, well, I just want to be rich now.
Right. When people call me, they're like, how is it? I'm like, year 1 is better. Every year that goes by is better, but it's probably not year 1. It's probably not year 2. But the game changer we've seen is renewals in year 3 has been much better. And then it just gets ridiculous into year 4 and 5, you know, for us. So I think you're right. It's stacking nickels, and you got to stack a bunch of nickels every single week, month, and year for 5 years, you know?
Yes. You're so right.
What, Hawkins, what else, man?
I think, when you kind of came up across like a time you lost confidence or a time felt like you were you hit a wall, what helped you to push through? You've obviously been really successful with this. So
Yeah, yeah, I've fortunately been very successful at Goosehead. I absolutely love what I do, but it's sales, and there are high highs and low lows in sales. And I was actually listening to a pretty cool podcast this morning, so I'm glad you asked that. And it was all about the no. And, if you get no, 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 how do you stay engaged? Because typically the rule is kind of every like 10 no's you'll get a yes.
mm-hmm.
Every 10 people you talk to that tell you no, you'll get one yes. And so instead of having the mindset of like, man, I'm just getting bogged down, like no, no, and no, saying, okay, well, that one no is me closer to getting to that yes. And so instead of being like, I'm gonna be bogged down because I'm having kind of a shutout day, I'm gonna say, you know what? I'm just that much closer to breaking through to a really awesome agent that I'm gonna recruit to be a franchise owner here at Goosehead. And so instead of having that mindset of like every no is getting me closer to a yes, I think it's a really good way to look at it. And then I also tap into our agent significantly. Like if I'm having a tough day and feeling down, I'll pick up the phone and call Ryan and say, tell me about how you're doing. Like how are things going for you? Or talking to a brand new agent that just passed training and they're all excited and fired up about Goosehead, and, really just leaning on our agent because they're loving it. They're crushing it. And that gives me like some to call the next agent.
Yeah. I mean, I can specifically remember one day, I came in and it was just like some guy had fallen out of the pipeline, and Ryan and I were set to talk, and I call him and he's like, yeah, it's a slow month. I mean, we're on pace for 10K. It's just a really, like that's his slow month is 10K in production. I was like, okay, like mindset.
Totally.
It was just, that's a great point.
Yeah.
It gets better. Do you run into this, Morgan? Like me and Blake talk about this a lot. So you get basically punched in the face like day in and day out, like consecutively. And then you're like, what in the world? Like, because we're not used to hearing no. We're not even used to hearing like maybe half the time, And let me shut this phone off. There. So to us, it like trips us up. So then when it happens, like it comes in waves, right? And then all of a sudden we're like, oh, is there something wrong with our process? And then can be a complete like mind game for us, because we're like, we literally sometimes have to be like, no, there's nothing wrong with your process or ours. We've been doing the same thing that's been winning over here. We're just through a bad stretch. So like, I know like there's a balance between being innovative and doing new things and then doing the things that work, right? You guys experience that too, Morgan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll go through ruts where we're just feeling bogged down. Like, man, every agent that we're calling is just kind of shutting us down right now, and not willing to listen, or out of the office or whatever. And then it kind of gets you like, okay, well, maybe I should just go outside of, what we typically do, like either by method of communication or like different industries and things like that. But I think there's a balance of being able to experiment with like innovating on some new strategies, but sticking to what we know works. And, if 75% of our agents come from this arena, we should probably stick to that because it's been working for the last 8 years. We're growing tremendously. So we know what works, while still being able to have that like fresh innovation of, well, maybe we'll try to reach out to like this new type of client today or whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's managing a head game. Sales is a head game, 100%. But I think it's a lot about collaboration too. If I'm struggling with something and I can't get an agent on the phone, I might be having a bad day, but Hawk's having an incredible day, leaning on him a little bit. So.
Yeah, it's worked for me and Blake. I know that. It's like, especially in the beginning when we're like, oh God, at least he put up revenue or I put up revenue. Not going home with zero today. So.
And it's timing too. I mean, I've had like, quarters where I was like, man, I really wish I would have done more this quarter. And there's a quarter like Q3 this year where I broke the company record. And I was like, you know what? I was so beat down in Q2 because I didn't hit my personal goal. I hit goal. I just didn't hit what I wanted. And Kate Little actually beat me that quarter. I was, how in the world is my little protege going to beat me? But then last quarter I had a record-breaking sales quarter. And I was like, okay, those are the things that kind of keep you into it,
So let's wrap up. Tell us how you got your dad involved in this.
Okay. So I have obviously been like preaching Goosehead's praises for the last 4 years about how much I absolutely love this company. And it's been in my parents' ear, and there was actually a time where this is the time that I knew that I kind of planted a seed. I was really frustrated. My parents had moved to Georgia. I had a lot of kind of friends over that way. And I was like thinking really hard, like maybe I want to make a move, but I want to stay with Goosehead. So I actually called my dad. It was probably 2 years ago. And I said, hey, what do you think about maybe buying an agency for me and, or going into it with me and we could do this. And my dad at the time, he's worked for 35 years for hospital administration. He's been in it forever. And he was like, yeah, no, I don't know that I really want to do that. I have this career. Well, I totally wanted to see it. I know I did. And I just kind of mention it every now and then. And then my dad saw how much Goosehead was growing, saw our stock and everything. And I continued to talk about Goosehead, the praises. And, my dad finally decided, you know what, if this is a success that people are having 5 or 10 years in, and he still has 5 or 10 years, left to work, and it's an annuity that you're building, he was like, you know what? He was like, I think I want to work for myself, and I think this is something that I want to do. And he literally put in his resignation and said, let's do this thing, Goosehead all the way. So
Wow.
That's awesome.
my dad is
like
opening a franchise with Goosehead.
Well, that's cool. I appreciate you being on, Morgan. We're always here to help. You do a great job. Congrats on a good year too. It's not over yet, but you're absolutely crushing it. And
Appreciate it.
I appreciate you taking the time out to talk to us. We'll roll it out here in the next couple of weeks. But
Cool.